we've heard a lot, very important things. And those of us who are sitting here are familiar with the subject, so one doesn't have to go into details at all. Now, as I was saying in my opening remarks, I thought Mr. Qureshi wanted me to say my piece. The people of India look to it to hold free and fair elections. And globally it's watched as an institution that holds free and fair elections in the largest democracy in the world. And given the scale of it, which is, as I said, quite phenomenal. And the changes like Mr. Qureshi was pointing out, dealing with voter apathy successfully. Today, every successive election has more and more people coming out to vote. And what is very exciting is that women, who are 48.5% of the voters, have in recent elections voted in larger numbers than men. And in many places exercise the choice different from the male folk in their families. Traditionally, that's the way they voted. Young voters. Mr. Narendra Modi announced last year at the Independence Day function that those who turned 18 on January 1, 2018 would be his target group. And the party is reaching out to them. And as we keep quoting, 65% of Indians below 35 years, and by 2020, our average age is going to be 29 years old. So that's an audience the EC has been reaching out to. As I was saying, what are the challenges before the Election Commission? To my mind, the main challenge, of course, we've heard of many challenges, and I was also writing out, dealing with money part, which Mr. Qureshi said this is the one area we grappled with and failed to come to some kind of a solution. And I will say here, recently when I was in Karnataka to cover the elections, to write about them, I had people tell me openly that parties came to our homes, they offered 5,000 rupees per voter. My family has 5 members who voted, we got 25,000. And this is now openly done. 5 years ago in Tamil Nadu when I was there, 5,000 was a figure at that time. Tamil Nadu is a very rich state being talked about. And people there said, if I say no to any of the parties who come, they will say, this person is not going to vote for me. And they will come and harass you. So it's safer for us to take the money. And of course, some people say, "Inka namak khaya to inhi ko vote dena," and some people will say, "I'll exercise my vote the way I want." So money part is a big, big factor, how we deal with it. And with every election, we talk about 70 lakhs being the ceiling, but in most Lok Sabha elections, 10 crores, 5 crores is a conservative figure, 10 crores easily, and in the high profile ones, much, much more is spent. Of course, there's the whole question of how you deal with it, we've gone over it. How does the Election Commission expedite the disposal of election petitions? How do you bring about internal democracy in political parties? Regulating the opinion polls, dealing with paid reviews, EVMs we've gone into, VVPATs that the Election Commission has promised. I am myself very skeptical whether the government will be able to manage it by the next elections. And on this subject, again as you tour the country, this time from UP onwards, we find that it's not only the political parties who are expressing apprehension about EVMs being fixed, it is ordinary people, even in the villages, who ask, EVM ki tha kya? EVM ki wajah se to nahi hua. खासकर यूपी के बाद इतना बड़ा लैंडस्लाइड विक्ट्री था. There's a question mark in people's mind. Right or wrong, there may be nothing in it. But they wonder. And somewhere that confidence has to be instilled. So VVPAT is very important. And VVPAT is not only important, that testing for 10-15% random has to be done, has to be ensured by the EC, not just when complaints come. So instilling confidence in the voter that the elections will be free and fair. But I would say if I was to zero in on one real challenge today for the EC, it is to restore its credibility. Credibility has become the most important thing. And in the last year or two, I won't go into names, there have been certain decisions, the clubbing, the delinking of the Himachal and Gujarat elections, which had not happened since 1989 with the exception of 2002, when because of the riots in Gujarat, the elections got postponed. And this time the elections got postponed for no acceptable or legitimate reason. A large number of people felt it was done to allow the government to hand out sops. Also the Aam Aadmi Party, the 20 who were disqualified for office of profit and then later was overturned by the High Court. So these are decisions that create a sense of disquiet, have created a sense of disquiet. And this brings me, and overall if you look at the history of the Election Commission of India, right from independence, you can divide it into different phases. But overall, what has kept the Election Commission as a body, credible body, is it has been manned by people with stature, with character, with leadership qualities. And ultimately, at the end of the day, that is going to count. And that brings us to the central question of how do election commissioners get appointed? And is this an area that we need to look at? If you have to have somebody close to the government appointing those who head such an important institution, technically it's the President of India on the advice of the Cabinet, Prime Minister and the Cabinet, but in effect it is the Prime Minister who does it. So do we need to look at this? Do we also need to go in for a model, as with some other institution, where you have the Prime Minister, where you have the leader of the opposition, where you have the Chief Justice of India, maybe an eminent judge? Look at a slightly wider base for selecting the CC as well as the ECs. Now, if you look at again the trajectory of the Election Commission of India, in the first years, in what I would call the Nehru years, it was very simple. The first election was over a period of 3 to 4 months. There was no code of conduct that kicked in. It was business as usual for the government. EC went about its ways. Nobody questioned its actions. And a government was elected, and that's the way it went on. Then come to the Indira Gandhi years when the politics became very contentious. And that's where, the pulls and pressures and the pressures on a body like the Election Commission mounted. The weaker the executive, the stronger the institution. It's a paradoxical situation, ironical situation. The stronger the government, the weaker the institutions. And ironically, it is in the coalition era that we found the EC also doing better. I know from the media has had its heyday during the coalition period. We would get access to information, we would get leaks, we went to town. But the moment you have a strong government, centralized power, institutions all get affected. It should not be that way, but that's the way it has been. So when you had a one-party rule, Election Commission had a very low profile, went on, probably worked very closely with the government, like Perry Shastri, who was 89, I think, yes. And then VP Singh's rise in 1989, and VP Singh came to power that December, and in October there was this move by Rajiv Gandhi to appoint 2 other commissioners in addition to the chief commissioner. From 1950 to 89 there was only 1 member commissioner, and from 89 it became 3. It was contested. The court said 1. No, the court upheld it, and in VP Singh's time it was made into 1 again, upheld, and then we went into Narasimha Rao's years when TN Session, and I want to say this one thing about TN Session, where a marked change came in the functioning of the Election Commission. Here was this man who was not bipartisan in other ways, but the moment he sat in that hot seat, he was called a bulldog. He took on the government of the day. That was Narasimha Rao's government. And he insisted that if officers were put under the charge of the Election Commission to take care of the elections, he had the power to discipline them. And the government didn't want to give him that power. This tussle went on. He won in the court in 93, and Narasimha Rao did exactly what Rajiv Gandhi had done, appoint 2 more commissioners. That's how the story of the 3-member commission has come about. But the point is that from Session's time, 2 other commissioners who followed, the moment you sat in that hot seat, आपकी 56 इंच की छाती हो जाती थी कि ये हमको करना है, इंडिपेंडेंट इलेक्शन रन करना है, फ्री एंड फेयर इलेक्शन रन करना है. Barring there was exceptions and there were aberrations, all that happened. Of course, you had Session later on being proposed as a presidential candidate by the Shiv Sena. Of course, he didn't win. Or you had an MS Gill being offered Rajya Sabha by the Congress party and then later became a minister. All these things are to be looked at as far as the independence of the commission goes. But the point is that men at that time had the courage and the gumption, to belong to a certain school of thinking, close to a party, and yet deliver once they sat there. I don't know whether that is the story today. Of course, you had Naveen Chawla during UPA rule. His proximity to the Congress during the emergency rule was criticized. You have had cases like that. But overall, we need to go in for an institutional safeguard, and therefore look at how the CC and the EC get appointed. Unless we do that, it's going to be hit and miss. A strong Prime Minister will come, he will appoint somebody who is close to him, who he thinks will do his bidding. He may or may not. But we need to safeguard against that. So my one point that I would make here is the need to put institutional safeguards in place in the appointment of the election commissioners. So I will end there.